First, thank you guys for coming to the session. My name is Ajay Anandan. I'm a senior program manager in the Power BI team. I work with many of our IT governance, administration, large-scale distribution features in Power BI. And in this session, I wanted to talk about two concepts, right? The first concept relates to a question that we get asked for many of the large-scale deployments that happen for Power BI. It is, hey, there's a big self-serve motion happening in our company, right? People adopting Power BI. How do we deal with that? How do we harness the power and also be part of it, right? Many IT organizations and BI departments ask us this question all the time. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. And for the second part, I wanted to talk about how we can secure your core assets and your critical data in Power BI, right? I want to show you a bunch of demos of all the features that exist in this area and what we are doing there. So let's talk about the self-service first. When we launched Power BI in 2014, right, and even before that, our goal singularly was to encourage and promote grassroots adoption of BI in all organizations, right? And we succeeded on the goal largely. We've seen massive uptake of Power BI from individual users, right, who started using it one-off without support from their IT initially. And they started gleaning a lot of insights from Power BI. And we saw that in many, many companies, right? This had certain benefits. These guys, it was very fast, right? People could just get started. They could just download our tool or put their email address in the website and just get started very fast, and it was very agile. And it was also innovative, right? And IT started taking notice of this, right? And BI departments started taking notice of this. And so they wanted also to be part of this. And in some companies, they wanted to shut it down, right? They said, hey, I don't want my users to start using Power BI by themselves. I want to control it. And they turn it off, right? But in many of the large deployments that we've seen that are very, very successful, the case has been that the IT and the BI organization has embraced self-service, right? So why would the organization want to embrace this, right? What are the benefits you get? In the old days, back when SSRS was there and stuff, a lot of time was spent on gathering requirements, right? Going and talking to different teams in your company and figuring out what data and what metrics they really want and they would actually use. And in the end, it was a guessing game, right? Because you do not know what they'll use until they start using it. And it took a bit of time to roll those out. And in the end, if that didn't fit the expectations, the adoption typically was low, right? But with Power BI and the self-service motion, you have something great here, right? You can exactly find out what data and what metrics your end users are themselves creating and are using on a daily basis, right? You don't have to guess anything, right? You already have that. That takes all the guesswork out, and it's a gold mine, right? And you can get this from Power BI telemetry today, right? And also, these users already created all these assets, right? So you don't need to start from scratch. So if you want to roll it out as a corporate solution, it's very easy. You have a starting point. So the speed of deployment we've seen is typically faster whenever organizations take this route, right? And we also seen a lot of adoption whenever this happens, right? So how does this happen? Now, this is not some fluffy empirical thing I'm talking about, right? I have a concrete case study today, and my case study is actually Microsoft. I don't know how many of you know here, Microsoft has about more than 100,000 employees, and we have around 100,000 vendors. So it's a lot of employees, right? And we write a lot of software, so there's a lot of software in Microsoft. Many pieces of the software do not get the adoption inside Microsoft itself, right? How many tools do I have time to use every day? Not many, right? Maybe 5, maximum of 10. So when we launched Power BI, we had kind of the same issue, right? We wanted to get adoption. So we needed to do something different. And we started seeing that people passionately started using Power BI themselves, right? Once we put out the tool, people downloaded it, and people started using it. Also, people who were using Power Pivot, all those old tools, started just using it by themselves. And we saw a very passionate community come out inside Microsoft, right? There's still user groups. There's still like passionate user groups where if I go talk to them, I get bombarded with feature requests and like suggestions and everything, right? Every time I go talk to them, it's amazing. So we saw that happening. And so our IT organization, Maria's here, she's part of our IT organization, they started taking notice, right? So here's what they did. They started monitoring what's happening, right? What are people doing? What are they creating? What are they consuming? How are different departments using Power BI, right? And over time, they really understood what the usage was inside Microsoft and what the value prop was. And slowly over time, what they did is, for some of the projects that were deemed critical enough, they kind of brought it under their wing, right? And the benefits that bringing it under IT gives you are reliability, security, and accuracy, right? IT is very good at doing that, and it also frees up end users from creating endless amounts of reports for themselves. So over time, some of the critical things move into IT, and this is what we are seeing in our company as well. And many other aspects are still self-service for end users, right? And this has worked very, very successful for Microsoft. So I'm just going to walk you through how you can do this in your company. And I'm also going to show you what exact metrics our IT team tracks, right? What are the scorecards they have? How do they track adoption? How do they figure out what projects to bring in? So I'm going to show you some of the KPIs we have. Now, the data, I've slightly obfuscated the data, but I've preserved the trends, so you can see the exact trends that we're seeing here, right? So let me switch my screens. To my demo screen. There you go. Great. So there you go. Let me switch into my demo account. So for those who don't know about this, right? Power BI has a feature called auditing, right? Now it's caveat, it's in preview, right? We are working on making it available around the globe and GAing it this year, but you can still try it on preview across the globe. So that is the feature we use inside Microsoft to track how end users are using Power BI, right? So I'm going to show you how to do that. First, you need to turn on auditing, right? So you need to be the admin. You need to be either the global admin or the Power BI admin, one of those two, right? And then you go into the admin portal, and then you go into tenant settings. And here, if you search for, here you go, create audit logs for internal activity auditing and compliance, right? You need to turn this on. Before you turn this on, none of this data will be recorded, right? And there's one caveat. Once again, right now, all the data for these audit logs goes to the United States. Okay, so if your company is in Germany or has specific compliance requirements, that's the yellow warning there. We are working very hard on removing that piece, right? So hopefully by the end of the year, that will not happen, and the data will be kept in the same country as it originated. Okay? But for now, at least to try it out, you can turn it on either in a test tenant, or if you're in the US, you have no problem, right? So once you turn it on, every activity that the users do starts flowing into the audit logs. Okay? It has a delay of 24 hours, but then the way you see these audit logs is you go here into the audit log portal. Now, the audit logs are stored in the same place as the audit logs of other Office products are stored, right? And here's one question we get asked at the time. I have Power BI, this is great, but do I need a Office license to go view my audit logs? And the answer is no, right? You do not need a Office license to see your audit logs, but you need permissions to the audit log portal. Global administrators have permission by default. If there are others in the organization that want to access the data, you can give them the compliance admin role, and there are certain other admin roles that it's in our documentation, and you can look it up, right? So you do not need an Office license for auditing to work, right? So I'm going to go to the Office portal. So it takes you by default to the place where all the audit logs are present. I'm just going to minimize this. So here you have activities for all the products in your company, right? In this demo tenant, we have Office, we have all the Microsoft products set up. So I can see all the audit logs for all those products. But the one that interests us is Power BI, right? So let me scroll down a bit. Here you go. So here's all the activities we log. So every view is logged, right? And here's the information you get along with these logs. You get who viewed it, right? What's the name of the dashboard, which workspace it was created in, what IP they were coming from, right? And at what time they logged in. So you get all the information about what the users did in Power BI in these audit logs, right? So we have view events for viewing dashboards and reports. We have edit events when people start editing stuff. We have sharing events when people share out stuff to others and outside the organization, right? And more importantly, when people publish to the web. So we have all these events already in here, right? Now, this is great if you want to do one-off like compliance checks or something, right? But let's say you wanted to do an analysis of how people are using Power BI on a recurring basis, right? Similar to our IT organization. You wanted to keep like scorecards of how the adoption is and how we can promote adoption. How do you do that, right? So let's do this, right? I'm going to go search for all the Power BI events. So let me just trigger this off. And you select a date. I'm just selecting the last week. It's going to take a little bit of time. So once this comes back, here's the format it's in. So here, one of my colleagues, Siri, accessed this dashboard. It was another one of my colleagues' personal dashboard. And you have, hey, what IP he came from, what is the date, the ID of the dashboard, and the name of the dashboard. And also, all the data sets, dataset IDs that this dashboard connects to. So this is something we started adding very, very recently, right? So from the dashboard, you'll be able to see what data sets they are connecting to, right? Which in many cases is what you want to monitor, right? Let's say you have a very sensitive data set. You want to see what people are creating dashboards on top of that data set and who are sharing and accessing that data set. So that information is really, really valuable, right? And then you see details about which workspaces it's in. And you guys went to the premium announcement. If the workspace was in premium capacity that we just released, you would also see that here. So you can also see how much your premium capacity is being used here, as well as the capacity admin portal. Okay, so this is great. One-off, you can look at all these records, and this is great. But we want to do like recurring analysis. So the easiest way to get started is you can just download all these results as a CSV file, right? So it just gives you a dump of all of this in a CSV file, and you can start analyzing in desktop. But the way you automate this, right, is if you go to our auditing log documentation, we have a small PowerShell snippet, right? What it does is it connects to this same portal, and you run it, and you get a CSV file, right? And you can automate this process and run it like every week. And this is what our organization does as well, right? We just automate it, run it every week, creates a new CSV dump, and then we process it. And I'm going to show you how. Okay. So I already ran it for this tenant, for all the data in this tenant. So the unified audit log 1, that's the most recent file that I ran. So you can start creating amazing things with Power BI Desktop, right? That is Power BI Desktop. So you would go get data, and you would connect to that file. Okay, so you get a bunch of columns. Now, the really juicy information is here, right? Here's the date. Here's the user who accessed this, right? And here's the activity that they did. But all the other information is inside just JSON string here. This string is JSON. That's how it gets dumped, right? So how can you start analyzing this in desktop? This is where desktop is really, really cool. So let's go clean this up, right? Let's delete all the columns. So let's stay edit. So I'm going to go delete this column, and all the columns that I don't need with generic information. Right. And I'm going to also remove all the columns in the end. There you go. So we have everything we need. And then this is the important column, right? So what you can do here is right-click and say transform. And Power BI Desktop has a cool feature that automatically parses the JSON and creates a serialized format for you, right? It makes it into a table. So let's see how it does that, right? So I'm going to say JSON. And there you go. It said, hey, the first two are errors because they are not JSON. And then I can just click this button, and it's going to show me all the field names inside the JSON, right? I have to load more because there's a lot of fields. So look at all the information here. You have record type, creation time, operation, and everything here, right? Just say OK, and boom. It just parses the JSON and makes it into a table for you, okay, automatically. This is one of the features I love the most with Power BI Desktop. I use it all the time. So just we can again do other things like remove the first row. So let's just remove the first row because it's not fun. And there you go. You at least have a decent format. You need to remove the second row as well and rename the columns. I'm going to skip that for a minute, and then you just load it into your model, right? Now, you can create, so look at what you have now. You have information on every access that the users did to Power BI, right? Every activity that the users did in Power BI. Now we can start creating amazing measures in desktop, right? And every time, you just need to update the CSV file by running the PowerShell script, hit the refresh button here, and all the data will be updated. You don't have to do this over and over, right? You do it once, you set up the PowerShell script to update that CSV file, and that's it. That's all you need to do, right? Your data keeps refreshing, and this is exactly what we do internally as well. Okay. To the grace. Oh, I hit some errors. What are these? You know what? I'm going to skip that. I already did this, so I'm going to show you what we track inside Microsoft, right? What our admin dashboard looks like, and this is what are the key metrics we track. So here's the report, right? Okay, it's good. So this is our we track 3 metrics, right? We track monthly active usage. These are the number of users who use the service every month. We use weekly active usage and daily active usage, right? We track these 3 metrics for Power BI usage inside Microsoft, and I think every one of you should. So that's the first chart, right? So if you can see here, this was Christmas last year, and you can see the red line is the monthly active usage, black line is the weekly active usage, and the green line is the daily usage, right? Now the numbers are not, the absolute numbers are not accurate, I obfuscated them, right? But the trend is preserved. So you can see that during Christmas, people did not use it as much, right? Because people went on vacation and they came back and it picked up. And this is Easter, right? This was Easter this year, and you can see the dip in Easter. So you can start monitoring how the adoption is actually going, right, on a daily basis. It's really cool. Previously, you didn't have the ability to do that. So you can really see whether you're getting the return of investment on your Power BI deployment in your company, right? So that's the first thing we track. The second thing we track is what we call the daily active usage by the monthly active usage, right? The ratio. And what does this tell you? The first chart showed you how many users are using Power BI in your company, right? The second shows you how often are they coming in, right? So a higher ratio means the users are coming in more often, which means they're getting more value from Power BI, right? And to do this, all you need to do is to write a measure to sum up the usage by months, weeks, and days. That's it, right? Because from that Power BI model. And we are trying to make this easier for you to do this. Over the next 6 months, we are making some improvements so that you don't even have to write that measure. We'll make some easy ways for you to get similar views. And the next thing we track is net new users who come into Power BI every month, right? This shows that we are bringing in users every month, new users who did not use Power BI the previous month, and we always want this number until we hit 100% adoption at Power BI, at Microsoft, sorry. The final chart is where this becomes really, really powerful, right? So we take the audit log data, right, with the usernames, and then we go join it with the roles of the different users and the departments that they belong to, right? Because we use AAD, we store all the roles, and we know which manager each person rolls up to, and we know which division based on the manager. So we can do some really, really interesting stuff here, right? So what we did is we took the usage and the adoption and said, let's divide it by department, okay, and see which department is using it the most and which department is not using it the most. So as you can see here, so let me just bring this chart up in full view. This is the finance department, right? And they are one of the most avid users of Power BI. And this is true because back in the old days, I'm not sure how many of you guys know Power View, which was our first incarnation of our visualization self-service platform. Our finance team was the first to pick it up, right? They were the first to pick it up and use it, and they gave us a lot of feedback. So when we created Power BI 2.0, they were really, really excited. And you can still see that here, right? They are the second highest users of Power BI. Our HR department uses it a lot as well. They really love Power BI. They create a bunch of awesome metrics. So this visual is really, really useful because now you combine some knowledge about the users in your organization with the audit log data in Power BI to get some really, really valuable insights, okay? Hopefully, you guys do that in your organization as well. And if you use AAD, this is very, very easy, right? Because AAD has all the information for you about all these users. So that's the high-level metrics that our internal IT organization tracks and their leadership tracks on a daily, weekly basis, right? And then here's something interesting. We also kind of track what dashboards and reports are being used the most and by which role. Once again, the power here is to take our audit log data and mash it up with your user information for your organization, right? That's when insights really pop out. So in our case, we can see that, once again, the names of the dashboards have been completely obfuscated, so don't read too much into that. But these are the top used dashboards that were created by users themselves, right? IT didn't roll it out. Users just created it, and they're getting tons of adoption. So maybe our IT organization should go and engage with those users to make sure they are even more successful in driving Power BI adoption and also get even more value, right? And they can splice it by, hey, what's marketing using the most, right? And what is our sales organization using the most? And this, once again, is because of the combined power of AAD and Power BI, okay? And the final view that we have, right? This is very critical. This is not for adoption, but this is for preventing data loss or data leakage, mostly, right? There are 3 ways where data can leave Power BI, right? The first is people can share to external users, right? To some users in other organizations. The second is people can publish to the web, right? And the third is they can export or print the data in some way, right? And all these are logged in our audit logs, right? Every one of these is logged. So what we do is we have 2 views of, hey, what are the things that get shared out the most? What are the things that get published to the web, which is much more critical? Some users do not know that they shouldn't be publishing certain data sets out to the web. So our IT organization proactively monitors it, right, and catches any data leaks ahead of time, right, before anything bad happens. So this is a very critical view we have as well, right? So these are top metrics and views I wanted to cover in terms of auditing. And so if you see self-service happening in your organization, yes, you can turn it off by going to Office, but we highly, highly recommend you not to do that. Your adoption metrics and the return of investment in your Power BI deployment will skyrocket if you embrace the self-service and then try to partner with them to nurture it, right? That's the best approach to this, and hopefully some of these metrics gave you an idea of how you can do that. Now, once your organization starts adopting Power BI, right, we go to the second part of the discussion. It's, hey, I have my most critical data in Power BI. What are the mechanisms you have to protect my data, right? And we get this, especially organizations that are in healthcare and finance. They are on the extreme side of the spectrum. They would just want to lock the data down. But this is one of the first questions we get asked whenever a client is thinking about purchasing Power BI. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So let me just go here. So this. Okay. There's only like 20 minutes left, so I'm not going to show you how to do a lot of things. I'm going to just give you a primer on the different things Power BI can do and give you a feel of how that works and show you where you can set it up. And then I'm going to leave you with some links where you can go read more about it. Okay. So the first question we get asked, right, is about the pro trials. People can go sign up to Power BI themselves in your organization and start using it, right? And when they start using it, they don't need to pay a penny, and they can opt in for a pro trial. Okay. And people who use a pro trial and have been continuously using Power BI for more than a month, they are getting a lot of value out of Power BI already, right? And many IT organizations want to know who these users are so that they can assign licenses to these users and let them use it continuously, right? And so we have an easy way to do that. Once again, the audit logs that I showed you earlier, there's one entry there whenever a user opts into the pro trial, right? So what you can do is you can look at users who opted into the pro trial and then filter those users out by users who have high activity, right? And then you can automatically assign pro licenses to them. So that link out there, right? There's nothing much to demo here because it's a bunch of scripts that run. But that link out there, this deck is going to get shared. You can take a look at it. It's a small script that goes in, looks at the audit logs, right? Looks at the users who have the pro trial, and then goes into your Office and subscription and assigns licenses to these users automatically, right? You don't have to go in and do anything manual. You set it up once, and it automatically does this for you. It's a huge time saver for administrators of massive organizations. So I'll leave the link there. The second question we get asked the most is, how can I prevent people from accessing Power BI outside my organization, right? This functionality has existed in Power BI for pretty much a year. How many of you guys knew about this? That you could block access? Okay, a handful, right? That's what I thought. Today, you can go in and block access to Power BI based on a ton of very, very interesting conditions, right? How does this work? Once again, it goes back to what we use to authenticate and authorize the user, right? Behind the scenes, Power BI uses Azure AD, Azure Active Directory, right? That's how we authenticate and authorize the users. And Azure AD has a bunch of cool features. And one of them is to control who can access which product from where, right? It's really, really cool. And then you can set additional policies like two-factor authentication. So let's say your company had Office, right, and Power BI. Let's say you didn't have SharePoint. So Office, you're fine. You're fine with people accessing it everywhere, right? Fine with people accessing it at home and at work. But Power BI has some of your critical data, right? So you don't want people to go to their home and access it from any device or even from their corporate device at home. You want to just lock it down. You can do this with Azure AD, right? It's a feature called conditional access. So I'm going to do a short demo to you to show you how you can set it up, what are the different things you can do, and how it will work in practice. So I'm going to go back to my demo machine here. Okay, so let me reload this. So you need to go into the Azure portal, right? Once again, you need to be the administrator to do this. Once you're in the Azure portal, there's an entry called Azure Active Directory right here. Okay, you go there. And here, there's something called conditional access, right? This is what you're looking for. So let's go in. So the first thing you would do is create a policy, right? Basically a policy. So let's say, hey, I do not want my salespeople, right, the sales operation people, to access all the data outside the corporate network, or I want them to do two-factor authentication, right? So you do that, and then you go into users and groups and say, select users and groups, sales ops. There you go, sales ops highly confidential, right? Let's say these are the people who have access to highly confidential data, and you select these people, and then you go and say, hey, do I want to lock down all the apps in my tenant, or do I only want to lock certain apps, right? So by default, it's none. You can set it to all apps, but you can also set it to just Power BI, right? Right now, for simplicity, I'm just going to do all apps for this session, but you can just lock it onto Power BI. Conditions is where it becomes interesting. You can lock it just to certain platforms. You can just lock it to the Windows platform or iOS or Android, right? Or you can lock it to locations. This is where it becomes really powerful. You say, yes, I want to configure this. I just want them to access it from these IPs, right? Which is my corporate IP. So you just say, hey, all trusted IPs or all locations. So you need to configure a bunch of trusted locations, and it takes a bunch of IP ranges, and that's it, right? You can just lock it down to those IP ranges. Or you can say, hey, I just want to exclude certain IP ranges, right? I don't want them going to some place and accessing this, so I just want to exclude those IP ranges from coming in, right? I'm just going to skip this because it's difficult to demo with the different IP ranges here. And you can also say, hey, which apps do I let them access this with? Now, there's much more powerful functionality for apps. I'm going to show that next, so I'm going to skip this. So that's next. So these are where you access it, right, and the different conditions. Now, finally, we are going to grant them access, right? Hey, you can completely block these groups from accessing Power BI, right? That's one way to do this, but most people don't use that setting. The setting that's used the most is I want to grant access, and I want them to do multi-factor authentication, right? I want them to do two-factor authentication. This is a very, very common request that we get all the time from all the organizations, especially with the recent hacks going around. You can also enforce conditions like, hey, I just want them to access Power BI from a device that is joined to my domain, right? I don't want them to access it from anywhere else. So you have all those options here. So I'll demo the multi-factor authentication today. And then you have to enable a policy. Before I enable the policy, I'm going to show you one of the users to see how he logs in now. So I have a user called Matthew at themeasuredproduct.com. So I'm logging in, and let me log in, no problem, right? It did not ask me for two-factor because we have not set up any policy, right? Now, the Matthew is part of the sales ops highly confidential group, right? And let's say we want to lock him down to two-factor authentication. So let's go set it up and see what happens. I'm going to log out. So we just created a policy, everything is good, and I'm just going to turn on the policy and then create it. Now this policy takes about a minute to kick in, right, for all the caches to clear and to click in. So we'll have to try this just a few times. Let's see if it kicked in already. Sign in. Oops. There you go. Last time it just let me log in. Now I get a text message in my phone with the code, and I need to enter the code, right? If the user has not set up two-factor authentication before, first time we'll just ask them to enter a phone number, right? And then verify that it's their phone number. And then next time, look at this, I got the text 763. So let me just enter this right now. 763 296. There you go, right? That easy, right? And go try out all the subnets and everything. It's awesome. Like the location is what we get the most from many sensitive companies. It's a very, very valuable feature. It's a Azure AD feature though, right? And Power BI works with it. Now there's another cool, interesting feature with Azure AD. I'm not going to be able to demo that, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit. Let me go back to conditional access. Some of the policies you can configure, right? And so let me go back. Users flagged for risks and risky sign-ins, right? You can see users. So let's say user travels, right, to some location that is deemed risky, and Microsoft has a whole team of data scientists and a bunch of machine learning algorithms to detect when a user is signing in from a risky location. And by risky location, we mean locations where people are prone to getting hacked a lot. So when people travel to those locations, you can see how many people were logging in from those locations to Power BI and to every application in your company, right? And you can just monitor it if that's all you want to do. But you can also go in. It's in the risky sign-ins, right? You can see who they are, and then later you can configure Power BI so that users cannot log in if they're flying from a location that is deemed as high risk, right? So you can only allow low risk sign-ins, and then if a person is traveling somewhere internationally and they're pulling up Power BI, it just won't work, right? Based on the profiling that we do. So many cool features here for admins, not in the Power BI Admin Center, but outside, but it's really, really cool. Okay, I'm going to transition into the next thing that I want to talk about. So now that you've secured access to Power BI itself, right? What do you do next? You secure the data inside Power BI, right? We have a bunch of tenant controls. Where is this? Okay. The Power BI has a bunch of tenant controls and settings that you can use to control how people access data inside Power BI, right? I'm going to show you that next. So let's go back to our admin portal here. So once again, it's in settings gear, admin portal, and you need to be the global administrator or the Power BI administrator in your tenant. I'm going to tenant settings. So again, there's a plethora of settings here. Oh, that's why. Thank you. There you go. So you would go into settings and the admin portal. And we have a lot of settings here. So let's look at a few of them, right? The first two settings, or the first set of settings, are the most important, right? It's about how your data gets exported and shared outside Power BI, right? To users inside or outside your organization. First setting is how you can control whether people can share outside your organization, outside your tenant, right? If this is disabled, nobody can share anything in Power BI to anyone outside your tenant, right? This is great. Now you have flexibility as well. You can decide to just allow certain groups of people to share outside and then block it to everybody else. Or you can just exclude certain groups as well and give everybody else access. We'll see a quick demo of that short while, but I want to talk about the other settings as well. Publish to web, for many of you who do not know, there's a report. The owner of the report can go get a link to the report. That's a publish to web link, and they can embed it in any public website, right? And anybody who has access to that website can see the data. So if you have critical data in your organization, and you do not want your end users to accidentally even do that, you can go turn it off here, right? Once again, it has the same. We are working on enabling granular controls for this. Right now, it's a on or off setting. Somebody wants that. It's very high on our list. We are working very hard at it. There's some trickiness to it, so it's taking longer than we expected. And that'll happen soon. And so you can also control exporting data, right, from Power BI. Turn it off, nobody can export data, and you can control printing, and you can also control exporting reports outside, right? So I'm just going to do a quick demo of sharing content externally, right? I'm just going to show you first that, so I have a dashboard. I'm going to say, hey, external user at contoso.com. Contoso is not this tenant. So if you go here, it just tells me, hey, one of users is outside the organization, but it lets me share, right? Now, if I hit the share button, it will work. So let's go turn off the setting and see how what happens. So I turn it off, come back here. Once again, it could take anywhere from like 30 seconds to a minute, depending on the size of the tenant, to take into effect. So let's try it now. So I turn it off, external user at contoso.com. There you go. So the error changed. Now if I try to share, the share button is disabled, right? Nobody can do this anymore, right? It's that easy to set it up and enforce. Okay. So, and those are the settings we get asked the most. There's one other setting that I want to talk about. I'm not going to demo it because I have only 8 more minutes to go. And that setting is how you can classify your dashboards, right? In many organizations, they have different classifications of data. In Microsoft, we call it LBI, MBI, and HBI. It's low impact, medium impact, and high impact, medium business impact. In many organizations, they have similar categorizations, and they want authors to set a classification on each of the content they create, right? And you can do that in Power BI as well, if you didn't know. So you can go here and start creating, hey, confidential, top secret, low business impact, and you can have a shorthand notation, right? And you can say, hey, what is the URL to learn more about this this classification? And your users can go set it in their dashboards, right? When they create a dashboard, they can set it as, hey, this dashboard is high impact, and this dashboard is low impact, right? So let me see if I have a quick. So here we go. So when users go and visit a dashboard, on the left, it shows them the classification. It shows them whether it's LBI or HBI or MBI in our case, because that's what we set up. Now you can set it up to any custom tags that you want, right? So that end users, when they consume the dashboard, they know that that is sensitive information, which says, no, this is information that can be shared out. It's a really cool feature as well. Track back. So those are all the enterprise controls. We have just search for Power BI admin controls. We have extensive documentation on this. That should be pretty straightforward for you, right? The deck is going to get shared out, so that's fine. I have one more here. So we talked about how you set up conditional access, right? How you can prevent users from signing into Power BI or something when they go outside the organization. Now, Power BI has a lot of mobile apps. We have apps for Android. We have apps for iOS. And so I'm just going to get my colleague's phone here. So we have apps for Android. This is an Android phone here. Now, let's say people are bringing their own devices now, right? You're not having corporate devices anymore. So you want to lock down Power BI on their personal devices, right? So what can you do on a personal device? First, yeah, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to project this device here. This is my the most nervous part of my presentation because it's a hit or miss. So lock it. Okay, it's connecting now. There you go. I'm going to minimize the screen. So this is just showing you my device, right? This is just projecting my device. So if I go to my home screen, yeah, that's the home screen of this device, right? I'm just projecting this there. So people can install Power BI, the mobile app in their phones, and access all the data anywhere they are, right? And many organizations want to enforce security, right? Because it's mostly critical data inside Power BI. The 3 things that get asked the most are, hey, I want to put a pin on them, right? So that a random person who gets access to the phone cannot see the data inside Power BI, right? So they want to lock it by a pin. And along with that, they want to encrypt the data Okay. Oh, the phone locked. As I said, this is the most nervous part of my presentation. So they want to encrypt the data in the phones, right? By default, the data is not encrypted, but many organizations want to encrypt the data in the phone and remote wipe it if something goes wrong. They want to have that access to remote wipe the data in case something goes wrong, right? That's number one. Number two, users can take screenshots on the phone, right, and then share it out. You have no control over it because I can just take a screen share on my phone and share it out, right? And also Power BI has functions where you can annotate visuals and then share it out. So people have multiple ways of sharing out data once they start using Power BI, right? But Microsoft has this amazing product called Intune. If your organization has Intune, you can configure some amazing security settings for Power BI. And I'm going to show you what happens here, right? Okay, its screen is enabled. So I'm going to open Power BI. First, it asks me for a PIN. Okay, every user, you can force a PIN on the users just for this application, right? So that it doesn't impede on them on their daily normal mobile usage, but when they try to access these apps, they are asked for a PIN. So I'm just going to, now don't use 1, 2, 3, 4 as your PIN. Demo. So all the data is encrypted behind the scene, right? So even if somebody gets access to the phone, the data, they can't do anything with the data by itself. So here, I'm going to do something now, right? I'm going to try to take a screen capture in my phone. Okay, let's see what happens. What happened now? Okay. Oh, okay. So there you go. That's another. There you go. Nobody can even present your app outside. That even surprised me because I could see it here, and then the projection happened. It failed. That's how amazing it is, right? Even though all I have is an Olympics demo, right? So I'm just going to hold out my phone and show it to you, and then talk through it. So I'm going to take another screenshot here, right? And that message right there, okay, once again, I'll do it once again. That message tells me that I cannot take any, oh, the message comes up. Okay, there you go. The data doesn't show up, the message comes up. So I cannot take any more screenshots. And then the other feature that I have is I'm going to go into a visual, right? Let me do this. Okay, I have a bar chart visual. The mobile apps have a functionality where I can take a snapshot and annotate it, right? So I can do any kind of annotations on the visual. I can scribble anything, right? And I can share the annotation with other users, right? This is not even sharing. I can take, it's like a screenshot. I can share it. Once again, you can't see anything of this here, so I'm going to hold out my phone. Now, when I try to share it, it gives me a message, right? I'm going to read out the message and tell you what it is. It's telling me that you have no managed applications that you can share from this app, right? What that means is the administrator said pretty much this guy cannot share to anybody else, right? Using any app in his phone. The data is all locked. Now, the administrator can decide to unlock certain apps. They can say, hey, Outlook, if the user has Outlook from a company, then they can share it out to other users, and then Outlook would show up here, but WhatsApp and all these other things would not show up, right? So you can totally control everything that your mobile users do using Intune, right? Unfortunately, the demo didn't go as I planned, but it was better. So if you guys have these requirements, go take a look at Intune, right? Many of our users miss these because these kind of functions are not native to Power BI, right? Microsoft has Intune, Microsoft has AAD. This is where all these functions reside. And so the awareness is not there yet. So these are things I wanted to show you guys in this demo, right? Let's go back. So all the links are here. Thanks, Gabby. So all the links are here. This deck will get shared out. Go read more into this. As we said, some of the things we are working on is making it easy for you to get those KPIs and adoption KPIs for your company, right? Granular metrics for publish to web. I know many users need that. And we are going to add more granular controls for stuff like gateways, which don't exist. And we are also going to add more audit logs for gateways. So in these areas, you would see a lot of improvements coming up in the next 6 months. And then we had one more thing. We are putting out a new white paper, right? It's for deploying Power BI in your organization. It's a very new white paper. It's released yesterday evening. It talks about all the different deployment scenarios, what kind of components you need for each of the deployment scenarios based on your organization's needs, and how to set it up, and all the trade-offs that are there. So it's a very, very good read, right? The entire product team work with some of our top MVPs to create that paper. So go take a look. Once again, the link is in the deck. It'll really help you guys out. Once again, thank you for coming to the session. If you have any questions, I'm going to hang out here for a bit, and I can talk to them. Thank you.